Hello and welcome back to another deck profile. Today we'll be looking at Milotic V, one of my favorite water type Pokemons and an absolute powerhouse in the TCG. This Pokemon has the ability to even one-shot VMAX Pokemons once it gets set up and will destroy any fire decks. While it didn't really gain anything at all from Darkness Ablaze, it also didn't lose anything from the rotation. Before we get started though, I would just like for you guys to know that I'm starting a sealed only challenge series on this channel called Pokemon from Scratch, where I try to build a competitive deck from buying only sealed official products using only $30 a week. Our goal is to use this deck in tournaments until we qualify for the Pokemon World Championships. If this interests you, check it out. Anyways, enough with the bickering and let's get started. So just quickly looking at an overall preview of the deck before we get into the specifics, we can see that there are some interesting choices in the list. Specifically, Dialga and Galarian Zigzagoon. These two cards, believe it or not, brings the deck together, with one helping Milotic set up, and the other allowing us to fix the math of some Pokemon and allowing us to one-shot VMAXs more consistently. So with that out the way, let's get into the details. So starting off, we're going to look into the Milotic engine and how all these cards work together. And first up on the list is the main star of the deck, Milotic V. We're maxing this out to 4 copies because it's our only attacker in the deck, so there are potential games that we need to go through at least 3 of them. It's also not a terrible idea to bench them early and just let them sit there because we can just fully charge them up through Frostmoth before actually having to use them. We're mainly using Milotic only for the first attack because as you can see from Absolute's ability and Galar Mine, we can power up Milotic's Aqua Impact attack to insane heights. So for example, if you were against ADP and you had Milotic out with an Absolute and a Galar Mine, he would do 310 damage to it and just one-shotting it. Also, you can increase this damage just from having multiple Absolutes out. Because of the synergy between these cards, we want to max out Galar Mine and have 3 copies of Absolutes. We only need 3 copies of this, mainly due to bench space issues. Next is the energy accelerator of the deck, Frostmoth. We are running a 2-2 line of Frostmoth mainly because we essentially only need to set up 1 copy on the field for the deck to get going. After getting our energies onto our Milotics, we don't really mind if our opponent bosses orders up our Frostmoth to knock it out. This card combos off well with the 2 copies of Capricious Bucket since we can just grab the energies directly from our deck and put it onto the field. Ideally, 3 buckets should be ran, but the deck list was too tight to incorporate a 3rd copy, but the deck still functions the way it should with 2. Next is our 2 copies of the Dene GX. It's just here to provide the deck with additional draw power and add consistency to the deck. We're using this instead of Crobat V because if we have a dead hand, it's really hard for us to lower our hand size to effectively use Crobat V. So using the Dene is just better in this case, since we can just discard our hand and have a new hand of 6. Next is 3 Jirachis. It's here to help our deck flow together and make it more consistent. It's a little bit more awkward now since we lose escape boards due to rotation, but with 4 scoop up nets and 4 switches in the deck, we can still loop Jirachis, which is the most important thing. Next are our 2 tech cards, Cryogonal and Galarian Zigzagoon. Cryogonal is great in this deck, because if we go second, it can buy us so much time with its item locked effect from its attack. Normally, we want to go first because we are in an evolution deck, but if we went second, we would ideally set up as much as we can and switch to Cryogonal to attack, which will lock our opponents out of their item cards for the next turn. This sets back the opponent drastically since they are unable to use supporters on their first turn and now can't use items on their second turn. This will give us time to finish setting up our board and charging up Milotics and then start attacking. You can also opt to continue to lock if you need more time to set up if your opponent is unable to knock out the Cryogonal. Then, our Galarian Zigzagoon is here to help us fix the math to one-shot VMAXs whenever we need it to. We can ping for 1 damage counter when our 1 copy of Galarian Zigzagoon comes down, and then loop it with Scoop Up Net. If our opponent's active Pokemon has 6 retreat costs, Milotic will hit for 310. Normally, VMAXs have around 320 to 330 HP, so using Galarian Zigzagoon to finish off the last 10 to 20 HP is perfect. Onto our supporters, we're running 4 Professor's Research and 3 Marnies. We're choosing to max out Professor's Research so we can dig through our deck to ensure that we can set up properly in the early game. Marnie is just here mainly as a disruption and a second form of draw power. Since our deck causes our opponent's active Pokemon to have an absurd retreat cost, if we can Marnie away their switch cards, we can lock their active Pokemon in place as an option. Next, we're running 2 copies of Boss's Order. It's just here to allow us the ability to take targeted knockouts on Pokemon that are on the bench. Basically, every deck should have this card, so there's not much to say about this. We don't really need that many copies because we aim to one-shot our opponent's main attackers anyways, and anything we can't kill, Galarian Zigzagoon should be able to snipe them off from the bench. Onto our search engine, we're running a 4-3 split of Quick Balls and Pokemon Communication. That's all the search cards that our deck can utilize that has been currently released so far in the format, so while not optimal, it'll make do. Quick Ball is great since it can basically search out all our Pokemon, and Pokemon Communication is okay as well, but can be awkward at times since it requires us to have another Pokemon in hand for us to use, which isn't always the case depending on what we draw. Next are our switching cards with 4 scoop up nets and 4 switches. This allows our Jirachi engine to work since we can loop Jirachis when we have 2 of them on the field. I also mentioned it previously, but scoop up nets also let us loop Galarian Zigzagoons whenever we needed to. We're running 1 Tool Scraper because it can discard very crucial item cards that can prevent us from taking knockouts. Since our damage correlates with the opponent's retreat cost, the opponent can essentially lower our damage output by attaching air balloons or U-turn boards to their main attacker. Big Charm and Giant Capes can also be an issue, so Tool Scraper is a great one-of the deck to take care of them. Finally, we are running 1 Ordinary Rod. This is to help us get back Pokemons we discarded from the Dedenne GX or Professor's Research back into the deck. We can also put back energies back into the deck that we can attach with Frostmoth later on. Only 1 is needed since it doesn't really come up early game, but it's nice to have late game. Then for our energy lines, we're running 10 water energies. This will allow us to see enough water energies through our draw supporters, but we don't need any more because we can search them out with the Capricious Bucket. And that is all for the deck profile today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe and comment. It will mean so much to me since this is a new channel that's just starting out. If you have anything you'd like to see in future content, a particular deck you want me to cover, or just general tips of improvement, please let me know. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.